Okay, now we're going to go into some coding about arrays and array lists. Y'all already know a little bit about arrays. I'm going to show you array lists, and hopefully we'll just use array lists or lists for the rest of this class because they really give you a lot more functionality than what an array does. But we do need to at least talk about how we bridge the gap between an array and array list. So let's go. I'm going to drive this by example. I don't really have any slides to explain this. If you need to know more about arrays, it's in the first chapter of your core Java book. So I'm just going to create an array fun class, and it's just going to have public static void main. I don't think I've actually talked too much about arrays. Or have I? Not really.
Array list then,
Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about arrays first off. So if you have an array, int I array equals, you can do new int sub 100, and then maybe we could write a for loop going from I to the array length. Notice I can do array.length. Couldn't do that in C. Well, did you use vectors or regular arrays? Right. So you couldn't do that dot length inside of C++ because the dot length, an array in C++ was literally a sequence of elements. In Java, an array is a class. It's an object, I should say. An array is an object. So it holds the length as well as all the members inside of it. That's why you can do the dot length. Now you can still do I array sub I equals I. That's how you access the array with the standard subscript. Everyone cool with that from C++? And then if I wanted to print it out in reverse order, I could do I equals I array dot length minus 1, I is greater than or equal to 0, I minus minus, and then I just do system dot out dot print line I array sub I. And what is this program going to do?
Print out the array.
And what is it going to print out? Oh, let me not hide it.
The contents of the array.
Which are?
0 for doing that.
What order is it going to print it out?
Reverse.
So it'll start with,
Or 99.
there we go. All right.
So if you wanted to check, or if you wanted to remove a certain number, like say you wanted to get rid of 82,
Okay.
how would you do that?
When you say remove, do you mean, so with an array, that's where things get a little tricky. Since it's a sequence of elements, you can't exactly remove it. You either shift everything after it down or you fill it in with something.
So if you just wanted to take out one number, you say, okay, could you set that equal to null?
Not when you're using primitives. So this was a primitive array, and I'm going to start making functions to explain this. Public static primitive array, and I'm just going to copy and actually cut and paste this code down here. Public static void. This is just so we can have examples as we're talking. Primitive array. So we go ahead and run it. It should do the same thing. Boom. Okay. So that's the primitive array. I can do the same thing but with objects. Static void object array. And here you can have an integer I array equals new integer sub 100. And then you can do for int int I equals 0, I is less than I array dot length. We're going to do the same thing but with objects. And then we'll have I array sub I equals new integer of I. And then what I'm doing there is I create up here. If I ever go on autopilot, please stop me.
Stop.
And tell me what you would like me to clarify. Okay.
What is why are you setting it to a new integer?
Okay, great questions. Great question. So, new integer sub 100. So, integer, right over here. The type is integer, but it's called an array. Its type is actually an array. You could, if it helps, you can put the brackets on this side. Java allows you either way.
Does it change anything at all?
No. So we're saying that iArray, the variable iArray, is going to point to an array of class integers, of integer objects, I should say.
So if you do it one way and then do it another later, is it going to affect the program?
In general, no. Unless you're doing some wackiness with your declaration, but not really. So iArray is going to point to an object that contains an array of integer objects, capital I integer objects. That's what this says. Now we're going to create on the heap an array that's going to point to 100 integers on the heap, and then I'm going to return a pointer to that so that iArray points to that array, 100 array of integer objects. Okay?
Below that right there, where your pointer is now, why are you setting each individual member of the array to a new integer?
So since capital I integer is an object, you have to use new in order to create it, or you should use new.
Okay.
Java allows some auto-boxing features, but you should write your code this way when you're learning how to write Java. So since you're pointing to an object, you have to create those new objects on the heap. Down here, I was using a primitive. I don't have to allocate the objects on the heap because they're an array of primitives. They're not pointers. So I just set those primitives directly. Great question. This creates an integer object for each of the 100 pointers. You call them slots if that helps. And this down here sets each of the 100 integers. I'll say ints for a little more clarity. So now if we're down here, and again we wanted to print them out in reverse for int I equals iArray.length. I misspelled length. Length minus 1, I is greater than equal to 0, I minus minus system.out.println iArray sub I, and then that'll automatically convert it to a string for you and print it out. So now instead of calling primitive array, we'll call object array. I'm going to change that to our lowercase in a moment. Here we go, save it, comes up, we'll run it, and it should come up with the same answer. There we are. So what's the difference between these two functions?
If it's a primitive or if it's...
Oh, an object. Yeah. Right. So object array uses an integer, which is a wrapper around the primitive to make it behave like an integer, but it's an object. The primitive array just creates the array. Okay. So if we wanted to remove from the array, what would we do? Let's copy this. Object array removal. All right, so we have our 100 integers. Let's say we want to remove, you said 82?
Yeah.
82. What I will say are our options? What could we do first?
That one's the option. So we could set the 82
Okay.
to null.
82 to null. All right. What else could we do?
You could put something in 82's place.
Yeah, that would be null.
Okay.
So that would be replacing. We're trying to remove something. Could set 82 to null. We could shift everything above 82 down by 1, right? That'd be like removing it. No.
No?
That's what I'm trying to point out here.
Okay.
In a standard array, you can't just ignore it. What would be option 3?
The opposite, shift everything up.
Shift okay. Could shift everything up. I'm going to put bad, not because I'm saying it's to get on you. I just want to show you that it's bad. Yeah, because sub-0 would be empty, right? That doesn't make much sense. What's another option? We could create a new array, copy everything, and copy everything but that element over. So then our array would shrink by 1, and then we have all our values in there, right? If you were using an array, which of these 4 would you like it to do? If you didn't have to code this part, what would you like it to just do for you? Would you like it to be able to shrink and expand, or else all of a sudden have these empty holes everywhere? Yeah, 4 is what you want, but 4 is not what you want to code, at least. So let me show you why you probably don't want to code that. Because here we go. We choose option 4. All right. So in order to do this, we create a new integer. Next I array equals new integer, and that'll be iArray.length minus 1. Let me spell integer correctly. And now, ooh, I misspelled it. Oh, because it needs a little bloop. There we go. So that creates it 1 smaller. Now we need to copy everything up to that position. So we'll say int delete position equals 82. We just chose 82. So first we do for int I equals 0. I is less than the delete position, I plus plus, and then you'd have next I array sub I equals the I array sub I. So copy everything before that position over. Then you want to jump that position, so next I would equal delete position plus 1. I is less than I array dot length, because you want to now grab everything above that position in the I array, I plus plus, and then the next I array sub I minus 1, because it's 1 passed for the I array, next I array, will equal I array sub I. So then we'll copy everything above it down that 1 slot into the next I array, and then afterwards we set I array equal to the next I array object. That way you're currently pointing to the correct one. Okay. Did everyone at least follow me? Everyone at least following me? Somewhat? Let me put a little more comments in my code. So copy everything over before the delete position. Copy everything over after the delete position. So it's copying everything before the delete position into the next I array, which is an array, and then it copies everything after the delete position into the next I array starting at where we were. Okay? So now it's basically shrunk it by 1, and then we set the I array over to the next I array, so it actually becomes it. And now we can do now we would actually print it out. Now let me just copy and paste the code so I don't have to do it again. Okay. And object removal, let's run it. Let's see if it worked. What number should be removed? 80, which one?
Oh, 83.
You say 83, 82. It is 82 actually. Oh, that was nice of us. So 82 did get removed. And the array is a proper length. Okay. like doing that. Can't say you did. All right. Let's. I want to show you what the ArrayList does from the. Actually, no. We'll do it through IntelliJ. So new Java class ArrayList fun. All right. This time, public static void main string args. And we'll go over to ArrayFun and we'll do object removal up here. Whoops, that's not what I wanted. Object removal, we'll do object array list removal. I'll put the whole list in here. So here, if you want to create the objects in ArrayList, you go ArrayList, and for now, this is going to be new, but just trust me for now. Just type this in. It'll make more sense later. When you create an array list, make sure you tell it what type of array list you want, and you tell it the type by using a less than sign and then the type, so capital I integer. Right now it doesn't know what an array list is, so I'm going to put my cursor over it. Notice it's in red, and I'm going to hold down Alt and hit Enter, and I'll tell it to go ahead and import the class, and then it imported the array list for me. So array list, I'll call it iArray equals new array list. All right. So just remember, when you're creating an array list of a certain specific type, use this type of signature for now. It'll make more sense in the future what all that means, but just stick with this for now. For int I equals 0, I is less than 100, I plus plus, and we'll go ahead and iArray dot ooh. Well, we can't do a subscript because it's not an array, so we have to call a function. And we'll do add, which will append it to the end of the array, which is what we've been doing beforehand. We're just going to append, add is appending. What integer do we want? Well, we want new integer sub I. So what's going on here? We're appending to the end of the array here. Notice on this side, we're just setting a specific index to a new integer. So this is a little different syntax-wise, but it's doing semantically the same thing. On the array side, I'm specifically setting every single index, and on the array list, I'm appending it to the end of the array. When the array is initially created, it's 0, but every time you add an element, it appends it to the end. So eventually you'll get 100 elements because you start with 0 and you keep appending all the way at the end, and you eventually have 0 to 99. While on the other side, on the array, notice we had to list the size of it and then specifically set every position. Over here, we don't list the size. We just keep adding to it until we're done. Do y'all see the differences here? All right. What if we wanted to remove item 82? iArray dot, what can we do? Is there a remove of index? Wonder what that does. For int I, we'll also print it again in order, equals, this time we need to use the size, so we'll get iArray dot size. Notice I'm calling dot size instead of length. I is greater than or equal to 0, I minus minus, and then we'll just do system.out.println iArray, and we can't use the subscript, so we have to use .get sub I. Okay. Let me first run this and make sure I typed it all correctly. Ooh, out of bounds 99. Where are we? Oh, so the size is greater. Oh, size minus 1. Because the size would have been dot length minus 1, and I just forgot to type that over there. Did I do the same thing over here? Yeah, notice I did length minus 1. I just forgot to do size minus 1. Simple mistake. Same thing, just forgot to type it in. And boom. And probably will remove, yep, removed index 82. So again, some differences here. When you, instead of doing the subscript, you have to call .get, and then you can pass in the index. But notice removal. Was removal easier? Yeah. Array lists are going to give you a lot of functionality you may not have had in a regular array. Yes?
So where you put capital I integer in the greater than, less than signs,
Yes.
what exactly does that mean?
So,
That's creating what?
I have not talked about generics,
Okay.
but for the time being, I'm creating an array list of integers.
Okay.
You're telling the array list class that you want to only point to integers. You could tell it, if you wanted to point to doubles, you could put in double, you could put in float, you could put in question, you could put in quiz, you can put in room, you can put in house. Any object you want can be put there. But I'm specifying that the type of array list is of integer. So it's like how with an array you have to specify its type.
Right.
With an array list, I'm specifying the type right here. And when we get to generics, I'll tell you a little bit more about how all that works. But that's the type of array list. That's why when you do .get, you're going to get back an integer.
All right, last thing. Normally we would specify the size of the array.
Yes.
And that, so we don't have to do that with array lists?
Correct.
Okay.
Isn't that nice?
It is nice.
And it automatically keeps track of the size for you with iArray.size. So this object, what is this object doing, actually? What do you think it's doing? I've been hinting this the whole time. What did you get? Wrapping. Wrapping it. Boom. There we go. You see that? The array list is wrapping the array inside of a list interface for you. So we have just wrapped an array with an array list. And you see how you now, by wrapping it and using OOP, we've actually been able to provide similar coding, so you don't have to change your code too much, but we've added some functionality for you, like removal. Do you see why this is helpful? Any questions on this? Is this confusing at all? This is where this class has got to start gelling. Any questions, comments? Don't know?
I have a question.
Yes.
Is it going to just be something that we're going to be getting used to using array lists a lot more than regular arrays?
Yes. For the rest of this class, I'm going to try and stick more with array lists than arrays.
Okay.
The previous class, just so everyone knows, the previous class, bless you, we dealt a lot more with data structures. We were mainly concerned with, bless you, but that's all you get.
Yeah.
We were dealing with data structures, so we talked about arrays, linked lists, and hash tables. In this class, I want to, now we've rearranged a couple things. We're going to focus on actual programming OOP correctly. So we're going to just be using the array list. And when you take data structures, you're going to kind of jump back into what the benefits of an array are versus a linked list, so forth and so on. Okay? Good question. Any others? Okay. Excuse me. So a couple of things I want to go over that'll make array lists a little more helpful. Do explore the functionality of an array list. This is really a to-do for you, because you want to get comfortable with the array list. It is actually very helpful, a very helpful tool for what you are going to try and do. So iArray dot, and you can actually look, you can add an integer to the end of it, remove it, check its size. We haven't talked about iterator or capacity. You can add something at a specific index. What do you think that'll do?
Move everything after it up one.
Yeah, so let's add 82 back.
Is the second thing you put in what value it's going to get?
Yeah. Yeah, so this one, let me be correct. There. Because the integer object is different than the integer primitive. So thank you. That was a good catch. I know I'm using integers here, so it's a little weird, but that's okay. I'm going to go ahead and put a system.out.println. That way we know the division. We'll go ahead and run it. And let's see, did it add it back for us? See, there's that line, and then there's 82. It put 82 back for us. Wasn't that nice of it? If it was an array, you'd have to new array, add things over, shift, etc., etc. But this, it's just one function. So let's see, what's another? That might be about it. Oh, clear. What do you think clear does?
Clears the entire thing.
Clears the entire thing. We would have nothing after that. Contains. Does this contain an item? New integer 82. So system.out.println. Does it contain 82? And then does it contain 182? Contains 82 right there. Doesn't contain 82 down here. So another thing that might be helpful. What's actually even more helpful, I believe, than contains is index of, which will return the index of 82. New integer 82, which in this case is system.out.println, and it should give back the index of 82. So index 82. Index of, I think, is more useful than contains because it tells you where it is, and when you use index of, you could also find out if it's in there or not, because if it's not, it's going to return -1. Let me go ahead and show you it returning -1. 181, 182. -1 means it wasn't in there. Because -1's not a proper index, right? You can't do that. Now, a couple of other nuances. Since this is now a class, let's do IRA.get of -1. And actually, at the top of my head, I don't know what it's going to return, but let's find out. It throws an exception, array out of bounds exception. So if you try and do -1, you will get an array out of bounds exception with your array list, just like you would with a regular array. So that capability is still there, which is nice. Let's see what happens if we try and go over the size of the array. When we do a get, we'll probably do the same thing. There, another array's out of bounds. Oh, isn't that nice? The size of 1,000, I mean index is 1,000, size is 100, even tells you right there. Everyone good so far? Just trying to show you all the, and you can go through a lot more. You can remove a certain object, or you can try and remove at an index as well. You can set a certain item, so set index to this element. When we talk about comparators, I'll show you how you can sort them. Make a sublist from one to another. To array. So this is the most important one to understand. Array list is an object. If you need the array, if you need an array representation for whatever reason, just call it .toArray, and you can just, and you will now have the array. I'll just call it the I array equals end. Oops. Okay, it's going to return an object array, so you want to go ahead and cast it like this. I know it's a little weird, but it always returns something called an object. We'll get to what that means. But if you want to turn it into an array, this is the code. I'm going to comment this, how to change from an array list to an array. And I'll be pushing this code up momentarily. Last thing that's actually pretty important, let's say you have a class integer array, I'll just call it static, or no, I'll call it temp, and you set it equal to some static values, 2, 5, 9, 100, 39, and you want to convert that into an integer array list. So the syntax for that's going to be a little different due to how Java works. Obviously, you still want to have your integer array list. I'll call it IL for now. But the way this works, it's a little strange. You go a new array list, and then you pass it arrays.toList. Whoops. Arrays.toList of what you typed in up there. And you're going to have to go ahead and over here Alt-Enter and import that class. Is that not working anymore? Resolve to list. Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on a second. Dot to where is it? As list. You can do as list, and then you want to actually copy and paste this in here. Array initializers not allowed here. What? So you want that? Oh my goodness. Okay. And I don't think this is correct. One moment, let me test this. I think Java just did something weird to me. Because the size should not be 1, but I bet it's going to be 1. Oh. Oh, that's interesting. It has to stay an object. Huh. That's interesting. Alright, so I'm going to have to look up how Java does this, because it is not what I recall. There we go. Object 5. Alright. So that was done correctly. Okay. That's the syntax to create it to an array, and then below here is the syntax to convert from an array to an array list. Alright, so you can convert back and forth. I'll have to look up the syntax errors with this guy up here, because that's something has changed up there. Okay, any questions? No questions? Alright, let me save this. Let me push it up there before I forget. And it's up. Good.